Well, hello, everyone. Good Monday evening to you. Welcome to edition of The Physicist and Philosopher. This is Wayne Steiger. That is Dr. Claudia Albers. And that is our special guest, Scott Zione.
Hello, everybody.
Everyone. Okay, give me 1 second. There we go. We were just doing a little time travel. I always say that when you can hear yourself in the background and you hear yourself coming and going, that is time travel. Hi, Scott. How you doing, buddy?
Not too bad. How are you?
Doing good. Doing good. Claudia, how are you?
I'm very well. Thank you, Wayne. And how are you?
Well, I'll tell you, we have had some serious wind out here. I've lived out here for a long time, and I got to tell you, folks, when you've got about a nearly 80-mile-an-hour gust coming through, that'll get your attention. And it's been like this for, now I guess we're going on 30 hours. So yeah, anyway, you guys had some pretty rough weather.
Yeah, it was pretty rough here for about a day as far as the wind goes. It started ripping off the vinyl siding of my house. In the middle of the night, I kept hearing this big loud bang, 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 bang. So I decided to actually go out there and take a look. And yeah, it was ripping the vinyl siding off, branches down, all over the area. A lot of damage, a lot of trees down, power lines, power outages. We had a little power outage for a short time. But it hit the East Coast pretty hard.
It did. Well, hello, everyone in the chat room. Good to see you. Man, there's 106 people in here and growing. Hello, Brian. Good to see you. Welcome all the moderators. Thank you, everyone. Well, Dr. Albers, people are liking the format. They're liking the subject matter, and it's stimulating, I think, free thought. And that's, I do believe, what our objection is to do here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Good, yes.
Yeah, wonderful. I think it's very good. I want to say hello and give a shout out to Daniel. Daniel, I've had your email, and I think he may have forwarded it to you as well, Claudia. So I am going to get in touch with you, Daniel. I just haven't had the chance. So just wanted to let you know that we have a lot of people writing, and this is good.
Good, yes.
So, Claudia, what is the subject for tonight?
Well, I think the most important thing is the fact that I think the last time we talked about the fact that I believe that the Earth has captured a new moon.
Yes.
And that came because I could only explain the shift in the magnetic poles in only one direction through a crustal displacement. And this crustal displacement is happening in the same direction every time. And only an object in orbit around the Earth can do that sort of thing. In other words, it's always causing the force to move in the same direction, causing the crustal displacement to then be in that same direction. And so it has to be an object in orbit. But now, and then I came across strange things. I started understanding what these telecords were doing to the sun, how they were interacting with the sun, and how there's a new force acting that's causing them to be repelled by the corona. And then I started understanding that how stars operate. And that is, stars are becoming gas giants. Stars produce a capacitor around them. As they get older, this capacitor moves inwards towards the star. So it may end up as with stripes like Jupiter, because there are currents flowing across, like we see this object here. It's got stripes, and that's caused by currents. Ion currents flow in one direction, electron currents flow in the other direction. And as these ions, and an ion is an atom that has lost electrons. So it's positive because the electrons are negative, the protons in the nucleus are positive. So when it loses electrons, it becomes positive. So an ion is always positive. Well,
Okay.
not always, but the way they work in my theory, they are positive. They've lost electrons. So what happens is current. So the red current, for example, would be flowing towards the east, and the white current would be flowing towards the west. The white current would be electrons, and the red currents would be ions, and they would be joining with electrons would in some of these layers be joining and becoming neutral atoms and forming things like methane and water and sulfur dioxide. And this is what we see in gas giant atmospheres. There would still be ions inside these. Not all of them would be neutral. But then these ions would drive the rest in these currents, and then we have these layers. And eventually all the layers go into the atmosphere of the star, but it will still be having some discharges, and so it will still be producing some light and energy, but not as much. This is what Jupiter and Saturn are doing. They are stars, but they're old stars. But it may go through a stage where it will still have a cloud of ions around it, like this one does.
Interesting. So we were talking before we came on, and apologize to everyone out there. We were in a discussion. We're seeing what I think, as I wrote to you earlier today in an email, what appears to be some very unusual effects concerning the Earth. Now,
yes,
allow me to pull something up in the conversation. And Scott, we haven't ignored you, because what you have to present ties directly into this, doesn't it?
Well, that's fine. You just go ahead and move around with the presentation there.
We always save the best for the last.
We'll get to those shocking moments.
Yes, we are. So allow me to simply give everyone a quick tour of what we're seeing, Claudia. And you and I were looking at this earlier. So here's the first one. We know the event that happened up on the North Pole.
yes.
It reached, and I rechecked that number again, and it did reach 59 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh my goodness.
That's just weird.
That is supposed to be impossible, Wayne. Don't forget, it's still winter in the North Pole. But there are two things affecting the North Pole. The fact that the oceans on Earth are warming to a level that I think is mostly being hidden from us. Because I think 2 years ago, I found the oceans near Japan, when it was still winter in Japan, were at the temperature you would expect in summer. So this was 2 years ago. So I think the oceans are warming up, and the Arctic is basically ocean. There's not much land there. So the ocean would have something to do with it. But the other thing is, and this is one of the reasons why I believe this object is not actually just a moon. It's actually a stellar core. It's one of these old stars that has been captured by the Earth, or it has come in. It may be attracted to the Earth. And it's, of course, interacting electrically with the ionosphere. And the currents in the ionosphere are strongest at the poles. They align with the magnetic poles. They are the densest at around the poles. And if this object is interacting electrically with the Earth, it will cause a huge amount of ionospheric currents and interactions over the poles. And that will warm up the atmosphere greatly, I believe. So that may be one of the ways. And the weather is powered, on Earth, is powered by what happens in the ionosphere. And that means that all the jet streams would be affected by this object. And this is why we would see severe changes in the climate and in the weather like we are seeing.
Well, this article, I know most of you cannot read Norwegian. Thorm actually sent this. I've been following these for a number of years. I can't either, but I do know a little bit. So what this is, ladies and gentlemen, and Claudia and Scott, this article is today from their newspaper over there. What makes this historic is that this ship just made a transverse of the North Pole. There's no ice. There's no ice at the North Pole.
Yeah, it's basically just a bunch of small pieces, slush. What's turning into slush?
Yeah. So this is historic. It's leading to set. Now, to go on with this, look at this. This was August 25th. We began to see these anomalies showing up. Everyone is aware of them, but they keep on happening. This one was January 5th. The ocean literally disappeared in Ecuador on the other side of South America. So now it's happening on both coasts. It gets weirder. We're seeing these obviously bizarre, they call these the sundogs and the halos, but this one is very bizarre, Claudia, just if we study light. I mean, I understand how it can be with the Clyde crystals, but look what's going on here.
Yeah, it's definitely not normal what we see occurring here. And to tell you the truth, sometimes I don't know if this is caused by the devices they've put in place so we don't see these objects. In other words, different lenses causing different refractions. That's a possibility because I haven't actually figured out what natural phenomena would cause something like this. I don't think it's ice in the atmosphere. I don't think that's possible. But there's something going on, and to tell you the truth, I'm not sure what it is that's causing these things.
I'll send you the link on this.
Yeah.
If you like this, because I'd like to get your analysis on this. The individual that pointed this out to me was that, look at what's going on here. We have refractions here.
Definitely.
Two rainbows, which, okay, how does that happen? In direct diapolding positions.
Yeah, this would tell me that it's most likely an artificial device that's causing this kind of symmetry. And you would expect this out of certain lenses to do something like that. As you can see, there are straight lines there. The moment you have straight lines, I think artificial.
This is bizarre. I'm looking at this guy, Claudia, and I'm going, wait a minute. Now,
there's no way. You see, a rainbow always forms a curve. There's no curve there. So this would be due to some kind of refraction effect.
Boy, and I mean, talk about ping pong.
And very strong refraction because a rainbow has two things happening. There are two refractions and one total internal reflection at the back of a water droplet. Ice cannot do that. Only water can do that.
You know what this reminds me of? War of the Worlds. The Martian.
To tell you the truth, what is happening to our planet is very, very serious. One of the things we have had for years is these sinkholes. And sinkholes are circular. It's like something just pulled matter out of the earth. This is what these objects are doing. And in fact, I first noticed they were doing it to the sun. There are blemishes on the sun. Like, look at that. Exactly.
Yeah, this is
breaking up our planet.
Literally. I think if people understand what we just saw in Ecuador, this is Chile. Their land. When you said about this, you and I were talking about this. This is what really bothers me. Is, when you begin to see that the coronal holes are now beginning, this is literally about 1/3 of the visible sun.
Yeah, especially in the purple one, you can see how extensive the coronal holes are becoming, where the sun basically is turning into one big coronal hole. And this is because the stellar cores, or the brown dwarfs, are drawing matter from the sun. They come in, I'm starting to think they may spiral in slowly because they are attracted by a huge amount from far away, because the sun has this negative outer layer, the corona, and they are mainly positive. So there is a strong electrical attraction, and until they come right up into the corona, and then the other force starts repelling them. That's why they can just stay in that position for a while. The two are acting against each other. Gravity will also attract them, but it's so weak compared with the electrostatic force that we mainly just have the two electrostatic forces acting against each other. And that's why they hover and they move past the sun at velocities way below the escape velocity of the sun. So gravity is not playing much of a part here at all. It's electrostatics, but they are old stars, and they start replenishing their energy by absorbing matter from the sun that's higher in energy. Basically, that's what's happening. So they absorb electrons, and then they absorb positive matter that comes from inside the sun. So they make these holes in the sun sometimes right down towards through the chromosphere to the photosphere, and leave blemishes on the sun. And Scott was the one that first noticed that the first blemish, and he showed it to me, and I said, oh my goodness, it looks like the sun's solid, semi-solid underlayers become exposed when these objects come by and pull this matter out. But now they are doing this one that must be doing the same to the Earth. It's actually pulling matter out of the Earth. That's what's causing these sinkholes and the surface of the Earth to just break up.
Well, something's happening. I know that we now have permanent coronal holes at both poles of the sun.
Mm-hmm.
This is an effect that has been ongoing, and now it's permanent. It's always there. So we have, and here's another good shot of that when we can see it here. I mean, this is what concerns me. When we're starting to see this, and then Claudia, I'll just see. Let me get this last one up here. I think that actually is it. So yeah, the whole planet seems. We have, by the way, you folks that live in Washington State, the mountain right there by Interstate 5, that's coming down. It's definitely coming down.
Yeah, the other thing that I noticed was rocks being left on land after a storm. And I picked up the picture from Ireland where they show all these blue rocks that obviously came from the ocean that were on land. Now, most people are not trained in physics, so they don't realize how impossible this is, because a rock is much, much denser than water. In order for water to push a rock uphill, it has to lift the rock. Water is more dense than water, so there's no buoyancy force to push it up against gravity. You actually have to suspend gravity in order to get a rock to roll uphill and end up on a road above the beach.
You know, I'm up here like the rocket man. I'm spending my fuel. So, Scott, you have something that I think ties directly into what Claudia has been talking about. And I'll let you take the controls and let's talk about this.
Yeah, well, for about, let's see, probably a little more than a year now, Jeff P's been capturing this anomaly in the skies on these weather cams over in Europe. I believe they're Germany, Austria, some of those countries, Switzerland. And, he's publicized his information quite a bit. And, naturally, anytime we get into this subject matter, there's always going to be the scrutiny out there.
Sure.
And,
sure.
some people have said that, oh, look, it's a spider on the lens.
Yeah.
Well, Jeff shows multiple cameras in different countries. So I guess this spider's little brother or sister, that is like in Germany, said, oh, hey, jump on the camera in Austria and I'll meet you on the camera in Germany and let's show everybody, what we look like.
I knew it. I knew those arachnoids. I knew it. What they're hacking into is free Wi-Fi.
They're smarter than we think.
Those little bastards. All right.
Yeah. And I think I think what's been happening over a period of time, I think the veil drops every now and then, and we are getting a glimpse of something. Now, I've repeatedly said over and over again that we're probably not going to be able to see this object from Earth on a daily basis. And what I mean is, people out with their cell phones or their cameras and, taking daytime shots of the sun. This object that Jeff has caught, he's caught it in the daytime. He has caught it in the nighttime. But these last couple of photographs or these last couple of webcam video footage, I got to say, whenever I saw his video, I immediately emailed him and he left the links to the cameras in his video. So I immediately clicked on the links, went to those cameras, and I saw the same identical thing for myself in 2 different countries. Okay, so the spider on the lens argument, that goes out the door. We don't even want to hear that nonsense anymore.
Yep.
So I took a couple of screenshots, and you're actually able to download the frame instead of taking a screenshot. So I downloaded a couple of the frames from both webcams and took a pretty good look at them, enhanced them quite a bit. And I'll be quite honest, what we're viewing is definitely something out there in space, within the sky, within the view of these webcams. It is clearly there. It's encapsulated in a massive dust cloud. Me and Claudia, we discussed these photographs. We went over them extensively. I enhanced them even more. And, lo and behold, in one of the photographs, you can clearly see that the object has those stripes, similar to what Jupiter would look like. Even though it's encapsulated in that big cloud, it's kind of alarming. And with everything that's going on this planet right now,
lots going on. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, nobody has any answers. You see all of the questions being asked. What is happening? What is happening? What is happening? But for the last 2 years, and I'm not going into one of those, hey, I told you so. Maybe I am, maybe I'm not. But I have said over the last 2 years, these are the course of the events that we're going to go through. And we've been seeing them play out steadily, nonstop. And now we're getting to the point where we are seeing the very, very strange and erratic weather. And, that's not going to stop. That is actually going to get worse. And like I've said to everybody before, it is going to become a part of your life. The weather that you had as a child and maybe even the weather that you remember from a year or two ago. That's gone. That's never coming back. And we are going to continue to see very, very abrupt changes. What's happening in the North Pole, I've been studying for the last 2 years extensively. And as of lately, just over the last 3 months, I've been keeping a closer eye on it. I have some different sources of information that I can go to on a daily basis, and I can get readings, and I can see what is happening up there. And what is happening in the North Pole is just absolutely intense. Hard to believe.
It's hard to believe.
Baffling scientists. And it's even NASA came out and dropped a little short video about 10 days ago. I did a short video on it myself. And they actually took video footage, I think from, I don't know if it was one of the GOES satellites or one of their satellites. And they actually showed all of the old ice and the new ice in the North Pole, how it motions around and flows around, and the melted chunks of ice flow out during the summer, and they travel along the eastern edge of Greenland. The problem is all of the old ice, which is the thickest ice that's been there for millions of years, is gone. It's gone.
It is. Yeah.
So that ice is much thicker. Whenever we hit the colder temperatures for winter, more ice does develop, but it's thin ice. It never has a chance to build because it's then melted in the early summer. And then it's evacuated right out of the North Pole and right into the Atlantic. NASA's own video footage proves it and shows it. And I mean, when I saw that, it was very alarming. And then to go with the evidence of what is happening up there with the temperatures, it's very eye-opening. I started to think the other day, what else could be heating up the North Pole? Not only because of direct sunlight, but who is to say that we don't have a multitude of very large underground volcanoes that are literally going off as we speak and heating up the North Pole from underneath?
Yep.
We know that it happens everywhere else on this planet. Why not the North Pole?
Well, there's
How
two
can
actually.
we have those huge anomalies of heat like you showed the other day.
Yep.
So it has to be coming from somewhere.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed. Something's happening. And even if you don't believe webcams and everything else, right? If it doesn't really matter. We know this. Things are happening on this planet that no one else can explain.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I don't know what this summer is going to be like here, but if it continues like it was this winter, it's going to get mighty hot out.
Yeah, you see, the thing is, if we have water receding from certain places, it will be piling up somewhere else. That where it's piling up is where the object will be, because it's pulling on the ocean. But the times when the water has receded and there's no water is longer than a normal low tide. And that suggested to me that this object is further out than the moon. But the effect that it's having is much more pronounced than the moon. And therefore, it has to either be much larger, much more massive, or it's exerting a force that's not gravitational. It's another force, which is stronger than gravity. And because it's able to make rocks float upwards, I know that it's attracting matter from the earth and pulling it up.
What was the stone that was found in Germany? The
Oh, that round disc.
Yep, that actually.
I forget the name of that.
Yep, I have it in my files, but I want to make a point of reference here. That event was a localized event that took place in Europe all the way down into what we call today Saudi Arabia in the Middle East. And it was not visible over here in North America because no one saw it. And that, what I mean specifically, was when they were recording in Germany. In fact, I can show you the pictures. You can see all the murals in Hamburg where it showed planets passing in the sky.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, they didn't have webcams, but you know what they did have? They had observers who painted what they were seeing.
That's right.
So all the naysayers on the Nibiru, Planet X, stellar core, whatever you want, they will not explain those murals that took place during that period of time.
Exactly. Yeah, now I believe that about 4,000 years ago, we had a huge comet come by, and that comet turned into Venus.
I would agree with that.
This comet did so much damage to the Earth that just about everybody died. So these things are dangerous. And this object it's already breaking up the surface of our planet. The effect seems to be getting stronger. So I would think it's spiraling in, getting closer and closer towards the Earth. So its effect will keep on increasing. We'll get surface earthquakes, we'll get volcanoes erupting because it's just pulling up on matter.
So we know now that 11,800 BC, and this is, by the way, Graham Hancock's Magician of the Gods. So from the diggings now, and I will get this pronounced correctly, it is Göbekli Tepe, that we were hit by a comet. They saw it. They were recording it. They knew it was coming. In fact, they buried these megaliths because they knew that if they had stayed exposed, that they would have been obliterated. So I happen to think, Claudia, would this not back up what you're saying? I mean, it seems like maybe our little part of the universe is loaded with these things.
It is, because planets form from comets. Comets come in all the time. And every time they come in, they gain something. They gain some matter. If they're very small, they only gain some dust, some denser materials that they can hold on to with their very small gravity. But every time the elongated orbit becomes more circular. So they come back sooner than the last time. And then when they make their passage through the inner solar system, they absorb some more material. Eventually, they start getting an atmosphere. They start getting water. And water is formed in the tail all the time and in the coma of the comet. So every time it makes its passage, it gets larger and its orbit becomes more circular until eventually it's planet-sized. And then what happens is when it goes past another planet, it interacts electrically with it. That is, its negative outer layer joins with the negative outer layer of that object. It does not tend to come any closer because the large positive body is repelled by that layer. But it's enough that it's close enough for a while, and there's then an interaction. It could even be gravitational, and it grabs the volatiles or the oceans or the atmosphere of one of the planets if it's larger than that planet. This is what happened to Mars.
And it shows
all its oceans and most of its atmosphere got grabbed by a comet, most likely the same comet, because it didn't happen that long ago, about a few thousand years ago, because you can still see the ocean basins.
Literally, yeah,
They
you can
haven't
see the
eroded away, and we still see the river beds, so they haven't eroded away. So this did not happen that long ago, that Mars lost its oceans and atmospheres, all its water, basically. So something came by and grabbed it, and I believe it was a comet. Of course, a stellar core could, I suppose, do the same thing. The stellar core is absorbing matter from the Earth right now. So it's pulling up on our oceans. It's most likely grabbing some of that ocean. But it tends to grab the densest material that comes from inside the Earth, because it's looking for protons that have a high separation potential. So that's why it will grab rocks and cause sinkholes from inside the Earth. And sometimes we get these absolutely perfectly round sinkholes. That's what this object is causing. And then
by the way, how does that happen?
Because
I just want to know, how do you get a perfectly round sinkhole?
Like exactly, the one in Guatemala.
Yeah, how does that happen?
A current.
Yeah, it has to be something like that.
Yeah, it grabs ions and neutral matter that is high in density. As it passes overhead, it will suddenly make a connection with a part of the Earth underneath it. And that is attracted to the object, and it grabs it and it moves it up into the atmosphere towards it.
That's interesting. So
let me give you a quick prime example of what she's talking about.
Let's see.
I know a lot of people will understand what I'm describing. Remember when you were a child, they had that little game that had the metal filings inside of it, and it had a little round face, and you could, with a little magnet, you could draw a beard and a mustache around the little object, and then you could shake it and it all goes away. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm talking about?
Etch-a-sketch.
Yeah, well, not the Etch-a-Sketch, but it was similar. But it was just a little small board game about this big. You could hold it in your hand, and it had a little black and white face in the middle. And you had a little red stick that had a little magnet on it. Okay, and inside of the game, it had the little magnetic shavings.
Yep. Now I remember. Yep.
I just watched the other day, scientists were tracking a suspicious mound, a black mound of dust moving across a desert area. It was picked up on a satellite. And the mound is pretty large. And it was clearly seen from a space satellite. And it was clearly moving across the desert and wiping out, the land behind it. Well, how would that happen? And what was that mound made of? Well, scientists went out there, they got the GPS location, and they went and they found it. They held magnets. They felt the sandy material, and they put the same type of little magnets right close to the ground. And what happened? The particles went zip right to the magnet. So what's to say that we don't have another huge magnet far from us, but close enough for us to be, interacting with it? And what is our planet made up of? Does anybody ever hear of iron ore? All of the metals.
Don't we have a center of the Earth? Iron in the center, isn't that?
Yeah, it's definitely mainly iron, which is can become a permanent magnet when it solidifies when it is within a magnetic field. So yes, and I think that's a very good analogy. This object is attracting certain matter, especially dense matter, as if it is a magnet. It's just attracting it, and until it can actually suck it up into the atmosphere and move towards it.
Exactly.
I got it now, because folks, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about the magnet in the Earth following wherever it's leading. Where you go, I will follow.
And then, I mean, on top of all of that, I mean, if you just look at our jet stream, I mean, it would be literally impossible for our jet stream to fall 1,000 to 1,500 miles lower than where it should be in any time of year. I don't care what time of year it is. I've been tracking and watching this jet stream now the better part of 2 years, and this year it has sunk far down, a lot more than it did last year. And that jet stream is responsible for all of our weather. Now, why would we be having all of these vortexes everywhere that just sit and spin and drive the weather? The jet streams drive our weather. We have serious, serious problems. And I keep mentioning to people right now, our biggest threat to anyone on this planet is going to be watch out for this weather and watch out for these earthquakes. There's a very, very big possibility that we may start seeing very large land movements coming up throughout the spring and the summer, and this will occur in both hemispheres, the north and the south. And
Well,
you're going to see a lot of this in the upper tiers of the northern hemisphere and the lower tiers of the southern hemisphere. You may see some kind of neutrality along the equator, but like a calm area, I would say. But if you just look at the jet stream, I mean,
as Dr. Beckwith would say, when you start seeing north-souths,
yeah,
Claudia, I guess you would know this as well. You don't see typically north-souths in the jet stream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is, I've been looking at this. Scott's been showing me this for a while, and I know that this means that there's something going on with our ionosphere. It's like it's super, super charged, and it's chaotic. And discovering that we now have an object in orbit around the Earth that's actually a stellar core, a highly electric, or you could say magnetic. It's not actually a magnetic force, but you can imagine as if it was doing something to our ionosphere, changing it to the point that the weather, which is driven by it, is going crazy. Let's put it that way.
It is going crazy. And I'm just showing you folks this storm right here. This is the most powerful storm on the planet right now.
Yeah, that's a bad system there.
It is.
Yeah, it's going to hit Madagascar.
But you see how tightly wound these systems get. Now, this nor'easter that hit the East Coast the other day, I was watching it very, very, very closely on the GOES satellites. And you can clearly see, even over land, it had a well-defined eye, like a hurricane.
Yes. Yeah.
And that nor'easter wasn't the first time this year that we've seen those types of storms with these well-defined eyes. Now, they're not going to say, oh, these are hurricanes, and they don't even have hurricane force winds. I mean, well, this last one, I think it did come close to a category 1.
Yeah. I mean, you guys were getting your butts kicked out there.
I mean, we had 45 to 50 or 45 mile an hour sustained winds gusting up to 65. I just took Claudia for a ride today and showed her the tree damage. And, she was pretty amazed at these massive trees, uprooted, limbs just completely cracked and sheared off everywhere along this ridge, the whole entire ridge. just destroyed.
I keep on thinking Gaia is pissed off. I'm just
Yeah.
so you got some picture. Go ahead, Claudia.
Now, I was just going to say that I was very concerned about the sun. It seems that our sun is dying, but it's not dead yet. It's still alive. But what I've discovered about what this object is doing and what it can do to our planet concerns me even more. Because this thing has the potential basically destroying the surface of this planet. I don't think it will collide because, as I said before, it gets to a certain point, it will be repelled away. But what it's doing already and how it's getting more severe, the storms, the breaking up of the surface of the earth, the earthquakes would eventually get so severe that no city will be left standing.
Let me ask you something. It just occurred to me. So if we have a weakening magnetopause and we have objects out there and they're coming in closer, because wouldn't a stronger magnetopause cause more of a reaction of repelling something that would be close by?
Yes, our magnetopause is actually caused by the solar wind. The solar wind particles interact with our magnetic field and flow along the Earth's magnetic field lines. What's actually happening is that the Earth is discharging the solar capacitor. So there's an electron current coming in towards the Earth on the sunward side, and there is a current of ions coming from behind. They meet in the middle, they interact. So the Earth is a little bit like a comet, and it still has a comet's tail. That's what they call the magnetotail. It's actually
yeah, I never knew that until just, about a year or so.
Yeah,
it was like,
that's right.
The Earth has a tail?
It does. They call it the magnetotail, which is supposed to be because of its magnetosphere being stretched behind it. But it's actually like a comet's tail. So the electrons come in and interact with the positive ions. They combine. And all this is happening. This is what causes our magnetosphere, this interaction with the solar wind. So these objects are stars as well. But they're old stars, so they don't have a large capacitor, a large reservoir of positive ions around them, except maybe for that cloud. That's why I think Scott will show pictures of the object. It looks like it's inside a cloud, and that will be positive ions. So as it comes in, it starts interacting with the particles that are flowing around the Earth's magnetic field lines. So you're going to get discharges, and whenever you have discharges, you have energy being given off. You have heat. You may have radiation being given off, and so this object and its particles will enter the stream of particles that are in the magnetosphere and the ionosphere. That's why the ionosphere gets supercharged. Yeah. And then the weather goes crazy because it's driven by the charging of the ionosphere.
And it is going crazy.
Exactly.
Scott, got some pictures that I know people in the chat room are going, let's see them. So you've got the
yeah, I'll go ahead and I'll pull them up here.
Yeah, it's like I guess the popcorn has finished out, and they're like, all right, come on.
This was a screenshot. This was directly from, I believe this is Austria, if I'm not mistaken. We'll go ahead and bring this up full screen. And this was what Jeff P. was talking about. And I've already enhanced all of these photographs so we could get a better view of it. And yeah, there was one person that did try to debunk this by saying, oh, there is no shadow on the water. Well, that's just a complete asinine statement, an uneducated statement, because whenever we see Mercury and Mars and Jupiter in our nighttime skies, including Venus, when do we see reflections of those planets on the water? Never.
Mm.
So we just throw that idiotic statement
Yeah,
right out the door.
absolutely.
And in the
This object is not bright enough, and we see all these lights that would overwhelm any reflection at all of this object that's not that bright.
You know, and you have to take into consideration that these webcams, and actually, when Jeff P. investigated this, he actually started looking into the types of cameras that this website and these webcams, the type of cameras that they're using. So, you know, you're going to get a much higher definition with some of these cameras that are being used. A camera sees things differently than the human eye. Modern day camera technology does use some infrared technology,
Yeah, they do.
and the eyeball in your skull does not. So this is not the first time this object has been captured in this manner. However, this time around, things are just a hell of a lot more clear. And not only was it seen on this camera in Austria, it was also seen on another camera in northern Italy, not too far away. You know, I forget what the distance was that he measured on Google Earth between the two cameras, and they were there. This object was there at the same time on both cameras. Now, they've been deleting frames quite a bit on these cameras, on this addicted sports. And these cameras are pretty good. They give absolutely gorgeous pictures. You know, even looking at this photograph, it looks like a postcard.
Yeah.
But I'll zoom into this a little bit because I converted all these to a much, much higher definition. And you could see all of these other white particles. They're actually in front of this object. These streaks of light that are coming up, I have no idea what these are.
These would be electrical discharges. It's the electrical interaction between it and our atmosphere or our ionosphere, basically.
Now, when you're looking at this zoomed in all the way, and this isn't even one of the higher definition photographs, but you can clearly start to make out within this this dust cloud, you can actually start to make out a perfectly spherical object right there. And it's even more defined on this one side. So, you know, somebody asked me, oh, you know, could that possibly be the moon? Well, if that was the moon, I think would be in some pretty big trouble. If there was a massive pink dust cloud around the moon and it was looking, you know, that big in the sky at a time when, we don't have a full moon.
Yeah, it can't be our original moon. This, I think, is our new moon. And we are in big trouble because this is not a normal rocky object. This
is another close-up photograph.
Object. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you where I've seen those before. I've gotten those off Secchi. You know, those are the light trails. But you know what I see there? Look at the center of that. You can clearly see that there is a core. Looks
there's something
wrapped
within
around
that,
you know, what would be, look at that. That's what I'm talking about right there. So I have seen those straight lines coming up, you know, those to me are what I call are photon trails that, you know, we see them. Look at that. Look at the density on that. And so light, just so everyone knows, light will show density. Look at that.
Well, actually, it's actually a particle current of electrons and ions. And when they interact, plasma, when they interact, whenever electrons are captured. Whenever electrons move to a lower energy level, a photon is given off, so light comes out of it.
Can you go back one frame?
So it's like a lightning bolt in a straight line.
Go back one more, please.
Yeah, there we are. It's very clear.
Well, there's another object there.
Solid object within a cloud.
There's another object there.
Yeah,
There looks to be smaller spheres.
Go right. Go right there. Now go up a little bit. Stop right there. There, go down just to there you go. There is another object right there.
Oh my, I hadn't noticed that.
It's right there. It's in the blue light shift. I swear there is another object. Go in the next frame.
The blue one?
Next one, yeah, the next one going right. No, the other way. There you go. Yes, sir. Now, you let your eyes adjust to that. You're going to see the same spot. Send me those photos. I'd like to work on this one. There is another object there or something. Anyway, this is all right. This has got me scratching my head. I don't know what that is. I don't know how to explain it. Only that this is showing up in other.
Let me just jump to the beginning of these. Okay. I'm just going to jump to the beginning. Okay. This was just like the original photograph. And, at first, whenever I did view this on the webcam directly, for myself, I thought this was coming from the secondary camera. I believe this one was from Italy, if I'm not mistaken. And the other one was from Austria. And at first I thought, this might just be a pink cloud.
No, it's behind the clouds. It's behind that strata cloud at the
Exactly.
bottom.
So as I started looking closer and closer, and if you look, because I enhanced these photographs.
Look at that. And it goes behind the mountain, the light streak going down. Look at that, folks. I don't see how a camera could do a distortion on this.
No, not in two different countries at the same time.
Listen, when I was, with Steve, one of my problem is that there was a manufacturer of webcams out there that used a concave fisheye.
Those fisheyes are bad.
And I talked to the representative, and this though, look at that. It's behind. That is remarkable. And I think sometimes, Claudia, don't people get the misconception that if, let's say, a planet was to come by or a moon, you won't see it around the world. Chances are, if this is in the evening, it will pass through the sky and no one's going to notice it.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, people don't always look up.
They never look up.
And
being honest, they don't look up.
That's right. We mainly look down to see where we're going, or we look down to see messages on the phone. Yeah.
Yes, as the Shawshank Redemption show, they don't look at your shoes either, except for women. Right?
Yeah.
That is remarkable. I don't know what that is, but that is remarkable.
Yeah,
but it's definitely not a pink cloud. I mean, it's definitely not. You can tell
a solid object. Yeah.
It's far in the distance. It's not in the sky as people would actually think. Not in the sky where the birds fly. This object is in space.
Well, that's because most people, and listen, we all face it. We don't have the acuity to understand spatial depthness. We see everything in 2D.
Yeah, I mean, it's at a large distance. Don't forget the sun is at 93 million miles, and yet it's supposed to be in the sky. We don't actually
I
see
mean,
the
this
real
this
sun
object could
nowadays.
be this object could be 40, 50 million miles away.
Yeah, I think it may come close at certain times, closer, but its orbit, it's still on average further than the moon. So it's not that close, but it's a huge object. Don't forget Jupiter. This object may be nearly the size of Jupiter, maybe it's one of those that's a bit smaller than Jupiter. But don't forget, Jupiter is 10 times larger than the Earth. And these are stars. These are large objects. So it's quite far, and I believe it's probably huge.
So,
And its effects are increasing, which means it's getting closer.
can everyone see this video? I'd strongly, encourage you to go over to the Thunderbolts project. This video and its accompanying preceding one, this will explain, I think, what we're seeing here. Because Claudia, they actually, as you can go online, you can watch it over on their YouTube channel. Our ancestors said that Saturn was the golden light of the nighttime sky.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Saturn is a star.
yeah, but it was much closer.
Yes, I think there are some theories that there was a time when Earth was orbiting Saturn, and somehow it got grabbed by the sun. Yes, I've heard about that.
And this is they said that when Venus passed by Mars, is that when or whatever happened, that you can actually see the electrical discharge
Yes,
going across Mars. So
that's right. That's what happens, because first there is the electrical interaction where the two negative layers on the outside connect. This is also why the sun goes dark when these objects show up at the corona, because suddenly they withdraw a whole lot of current, electrons from the sun. And so they lower the potential difference across the layers of the sun. So the sun loses the ability to produce light, at least for a while. It can replenish it from electrons coming from its core. But initially, there is this shock to the sun as it loses its driving potential. It goes dark.
yeah, and I'm just showing here, y'all, that you can just absolutely see that these objects of these spheres they show up. They have been showing up around the world. Now, I caught one right here over the Rocky Mountains.
Yes. Yeah, that actually may be this same object. I mean, there may be more than one.
Yeah.
Because so many of them have come towards the sun. It would be foolish to believe that, especially since they are ejected by the sun often and they go outwards into the rest of the solar system, then they come back towards the sun. It would be foolish to expect that they would not come close to Earth at certain times.
And by the way, I just want to bring Claudia to the audience. We have a full crowd in here tonight. And thank you for everyone stopping by. So I want to deal with this because when we talk about these objects, folks, this is the NEO report for the day. And look how many new objects, Claudia and Scott, that they're finding. All of these 2018, these are recent discoveries, folks, in 2018.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so it's crowded out there, right?
Absolutely.
It's extremely crowded. And these are the smaller ones that are not as threatening to our planet as the big one.
There's the big ones. Exactly.
Yeah, I
They
believe
won't tell us about the big ones.
I believe in 2016, there was, I believe, over 15,000 near Earth objects discovered. I don't know what the final count was for 2017, but I think 2017 will actually surpass 2016. and 2018 may surpass 2017.
And some of these are kind of close. I mean, 4 lunar distances
Well,
away.
you have one right there, 0.03.
Yeah, I'm going, that's a close shave, folks. I don't care what anyone says.
These objects are
they're
actually
small.
smaller. But, who's to say that, the magnet, the Planet X magnet that we're chasing out there, probably disturbed a lot of these objects. It's like I had one scientist refer to the asteroid belt as, a set of billiard balls. And if you get, you get that cue ball coming through there and just wrecking everything, collisions are going to occur. Some of these objects are very, very massive. We don't know each and every one of them. And we don't know the composition of them. If they're, highly magnetic, meaning, their compositions are mainly metals, well, what's going to happen? They're going to slowly be pulled in towards us.
Yes. And, our planet, this is the thing that when people get wrapped around the axle about this is...
Good terminology, wrapped around the axle.
Well, they do. I mean, I'm just being honest. So we get objects like this. This is the classic one that you can no longer find. This was when I think, Claudia, this was 2015. Something passed by the sun that was brighter than the sun. Look how it sucked the sun. Absolutely what it was doing. It was incredible.
Yeah, this is exactly what I'm explaining that these objects do. When they first make contact with the sun, they make an electrical connection. So they draw electrons. And when they do that, the sun goes dark because it's losing its ability to produce light. It uses those electrons on the outside.
Yes.
To cause this change across. It's like 2 electrodes. The inner one is the positive electron. The electrons on the outside is the negative. If it suddenly loses all its negative electrode, it loses ability to produce light. And so these objects come into the sun's corona, draw the electrons. They then may produce light for a while. The sun loses the ability to lose light. But what we're actually seeing is it's drawing matter away from the sun towards it. You can actually see that connection being made there.
Yeah.
Well, we've captured that quite a few times.
We have
with that object, making that plasma connection. Wayne, if you take your cursor and you click on the middle of the screen, there you go. You'll get that little garbage can to go way up there, and you can see it better. But I remember seeing this photograph. I think BP Earthwatch.
Yep.
Showed this, and naturally the debunkers went crazy, and they said it was this and they said it was that. Well, look, as much and as long as all of us have been monitoring the sun and the SDO and the NASA websites, this is a 1 in a million shot. So, the debunkers can just go away, crawl back under the rock where they came from, and shut the hell up. Because this is something that we've never seen before.
And it's still one that boggles my mind. It still does. So anyway.
And there are many, many other photographs that have showed up on the Soho coronagraphs going back, I think, a couple of years ago. A big, massive black sphere making its way right past the sun in front of the camera. Well, how do you explain that? Oh, they say, they're bubbles. They're bubbles, tiny bubbles.
Well, I love Dean Martin, but
I mean, give me a break, man. Bubbles.
Yes.
So I mean, we are seeing things that have never been seen before. We do have some of the Earth-based technology for all of us that if we monitor it long enough and we stay up on our homework, we will capture this object or these objects. And there's no doubt in my mind. I mean, other people may have doubts. There's nothing I could do or say to make them believe. They're going to have to investigate and learn on their own. But if you clearly just look at what's happening around you now and go back to what I was saying even just a year ago or just, 9 months ago, I warned everybody that these weather anomalies, they are going to increase. Everything that Dr. Albers has explained pertaining to our atmosphere and our ionosphere. We have so many factors that are stacking the deck right now, and it's all stacked against humanity.
Yeah, and I keep on saying the whole thing that I have a problem with the global warming alarmist. There's climate change taking place, but when they start building the models that will then begin to include the impact of the sun, and that's the problem I have with the models right now. They completely ignore the impact of any type of solar impact on the weather on Earth. And so I keep on saying, when you get those models and you start including that, let's see what they say. I don't like what I'm seeing today. I know we've really gone over, but I just want to close this. I'm living here in Colorado, and folks, I'm really concerned about this summer. I mean, I don't like temperatures when I start seeing them 110, 115. That's not comfortable. I don't live in Las Vegas. I don't want to live in Las Vegas. Well, thank you, Claudia. Again,
Thank you, Wayne.
Look at the crowd in here tonight. Y'all just bringing a
been-
crowd. I mean, what is it with you two? There's like this crowd following you.
Well, talking about real quick before we end, I've been trying to look further and further into the future as far as, our weather and what's going on in our solar system. And I do have to say that we're looking at a 30 to 45 day period in the middle of the summer coming up in the Northern Hemisphere. That's going to be really, really crucial. It's going to be about mid-July through the end of August. And once again, not only are we going to be dealing with this planet X factor, but we're going to be dealing with some planetary alignments that are going to just add fuel to the fire. And we may see multiple large catastrophic earthquake events from mid-July through the end of August. It may stretch out a little further, or from the beginning of July through the end of August, leading into September. When you take a look at it on a solar system scope, you'll start to see what I mean. I haven't talked about it very much.
Well, let's talk some more about this, because I think this is important. And I don't know, Claudia, have you ever read this book?
No, I haven't.
This one here is an account of the Egyptian record of the last passing of what they call the destroyer.
Oh, yes.
And the detailed account, now there's controversy as to the authenticity of it, but whoever wrote it, this is the thing that I look for. They said that when this thing appeared in the sky, that children's hair turned white. They said that the adults, immediately emptied their bowels. And immediately the land began to heave and hoe, they said, as an ocean. So who knows?
Well, this object will, as it gets close, eventually do that. It's already producing these
That's
sinkholes. And if we get a sinkhole in the ocean, then you will get whirlpools in the ocean. That will be devastating for ships.
Oh. There's something going on. I mean, folks, what we're trying to say here, this is not fear porn. This is what's hitting our planet. Something is happening at the equator. The equatorial magnetic pole. What did they call that, Claudia?
The ionosphere and the jet stream across the equator and the poles.
Yeah, there's a magnetic term.
The equatorial
magnetic. It's one of those. Yeah. Anyway, it's what I'm seeing, and in fact, Ben Davidson did a story on this, is that it's becoming stronger than the poles are.
Oh, yes. Yeah,
Folks,
I think this object may be in a not quite in the same orbit as the moon. It would be affecting our moon. So it may be in a polar orbit or an inclined orbit where it can illuminate the poles, possibly send some radiation towards the poles that would also help heating them up during winter. I've seen some pictures from Antarctica where the ocean looked red. The sky was so red, it was unbelievable.
can y'all see that?
So,
Do you see where the moon
yes.
is, Claudia?
Mm-hmm.
All right, now look at this. So I had permission to show this. So this was yesterday. The gentleman went out and then took this picture today. And you can clearly see that from his perspective, he was alarmed because it traversed probably about 24, 23 degrees.
Oh my. Yeah, I don't think our moon is in its right orbit. If we have a second satellite, it will interfere with the moon,
Thank
the
you.
moon's orbit.
That's what I was thinking.
So you wouldn't be in the right place for sure.
I mean, you
I
definitely.
think a lot of the time we're not even seeing the real moon. It doesn't look like the real moon. It's too bright.
Thank you.
And we can clearly see the features on it. The real moon was not like that. I remember seeing it as a child. You could hardly see any features on it.
Well, I know this. In fact, when I was coming in, I had to bring in all my equipment, but I have to use a moon filter lens when I'm looking at the moon now through my telescope.
Yeah.
It's just that bright. Okay, you two, you're going to come back on, Scott, right?
Yeah,
We'd
yeah,
love having you on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been kind of quiet on Facebook and YouTube over the past couple of weeks, simply because of everything that's going on with YouTube. They're deleting, terminating channels left and right on a daily basis, and I didn't want to get caught up in it.
Yeah, well, that's why we here.
If I did come up with some information, though, I will publicize it ASAP.
Please do, and we'll give you. The thing that we have here is that we're promoting the journey of the human soul, and this is part of that journey.
Oh yeah,
it affects us. It affects all of us. I'm going to talk about this probably Wednesday night. The energy that the human psyche is picking up from this, because if Claudia, if there is an electromagnetic connection to this, it's impacting human beings as well.
Oh, there's no doubt.
Yeah.
That's
there has
right.
to be
There's
a
no
soul
doubt.
connection to this, folks, and the consciousness of all of us is being impacted. So, hey, I really appreciate you two. You two are my favorite couple. I just want to let you know that.
Thank you.
Yeah. And if there's anything that ever goes on, y'all just announce it right here. So this is how I'm just saying.
Of course.
All right.
Why not?
All right, folks, y'all be kind to one another. We'll see you Wednesday night. I'll be on here Wednesday night and we'll have a good time on that one. Claudia, I appreciate you. Scott, you're a good